Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl. We're looking at our Warhammer The Old World High Elf faction focus, where we look at the High Elves in the 8th edition, in their 8th edition army book of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, see how they played, see what the flavour of the units were, and see how they might play and what flavour we can expect them to have in the Old World. And we're now looking at the rare units. We've done Lords and Heroes, we've done Core, we've done Special, and we're now coming to the end of the regular units. And we're on the rare options in the book. So let's see, what do we start with? First up is the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. So pretty much this is the opposite of the Reaper Bolt Thrower for the Dark Elves. Above average ballistic skill, crew, basic hand weapons and light armor. In a normal 2,000 point game, you could take a maximum of 4. More if you did like a grand battle, which was much higher points. But essentially, it has the repeater bolt thrower rule, which is 48 inches, strength 4, armor piercing, -2 AP. It can fire 6 shots and not pierce ranks. So it has the same option. It's either a bolt thrower, single shot, pierce the ranks, or you can fire the multiple shots and not pierce the ranks. It's the only true artillery weapon in the High Elf roster if we kind of ignore the Sky Cutter, but it's a true artillery weapon and it's pretty stationary, has a crew, that sort of thing. I mostly had 2 of these, or I always had 1, sometimes 2 in my army. I do gravitate to a more gunline style of army when I play. I do like my ranged units. But the one downside in this one is it's rare, unlike in the Dark Elves where it's special. So there's a little bit more competition here when you're looking at what else you might want to take in terms of Phoenixes and Sisters, which was sometimes the reason you might only want 1 of these. But pretty much every army list I saw at least had 1 Eagle Claw in it. It's great flexibility of targets because the different shooting profiles, just pick the one that suits the best. Same vulnerabilities as other artillery there. They're pretty static. You've got a low skill crew. Weak skirmish units, often will start putting pressure on those war machines, either with ranged fire or with charges. So that's always something to be aware of. But overall, a pretty good unit to take. The one thing you do have is the crew do fight first. So against a small, weak skirmish unit, they can take a casualty or 2 maybe if you get lucky, and that then may be just enough to stop them killing you in one go. Maybe then you can rescue the unit or something like that. So it always fights first, proving a useful addition to this war machine. Next up, Great Eagles. So above average leadership, low initiative and attacks really for a rare unit. Unit size is 1+. Special rules is fly. That's it. So they have a lack of special rules. They're in the rare section. They don't get always strikes first. They've got a low number of attacks and they're 50 points a model. Much better options in the rare section, much better options in the special section, to be honest. Don't really feel like they've got the poke or the rules that befit a rare unit. Not really sure why they're in rare. I guess just because they're rare in lore. This rarely seen on the tabletop, if ever. I certainly don't even own any. Not a unit. This unit would need something significant done to it to make it a value to take in any future army roster. So hopefully we might see some big changes here in Warhammer The Old World, where Great Eagles might be of value. But certainly in the 8th edition and in my local area, this isn't worth it. There are better options in a very congested rare section. Next up, we're on to the Phoenixes. These were cool-looking models, plastic models, relatively new in the 8th edition. and looked just really cool. So you can see here, this is the Flame Spire Phoenix. In the picture there, you can see it with an anointed riding it. You could field in the rare section, it was fielded obviously without the rider. As a mount, obviously it's in the anointed that we covered in the Lords section. And you can see that real sort of flaming colours of the Phoenix there. Above average leadership, but it's overall kind of low strength, toughness and attacks for a monster, and it tries to make up for that with its special rules. Obviously no equipment, and you only have a unit size of 1, so of course it flies. Flaming attacks, no surprise there. Fireborn 2+ ward save against flaming attacks, no surprise there. But it has this attuned to magic, which is a 5+ ward save. So it does have a bit of durability there. All attacks are magical, and then when rolling for Winds of Magic, you can get buffs or debuffs. So basically, it's a table. You roll your Winds of Magic, you take the highest score on one of those Winds of Magic dice, and then you consult the table, and that table will give buffs or debuffs if you roll low to the Phoenix. But there's an opportunity there to really buff its output. It also has Phoenix Reborn, so when killed, you place a counter on the board, and then you roll a d6 at the end of each turn. On a 1 to 2, it dies and is removed. On a 3 to 5, there's a flaming explosion. You take the large template, and you have this, say, flaming explosion going on. So that's quite interesting. Charge that in the middle of the enemy, and then you've got this explosion going off every turn. Quite interesting. But if you roll a 6, the actual Phoenix returns to play with D3 plus 2 wounds. And if you kill it again, it goes back to being rolling on this table. So quite an interesting set of mechanics, very unique and very fun to play with. Wake of Fire as well. You can fly over a unit, and that unit that it flies over takes D6 strength for flaming hits, and you get plus D3 per rank as well. So fly over a deep rank unit. I'm looking at you, Skaven Slaves. Massively deep rank of Skaven Slave unit, fly over it and get a whole ton of flaming hits. Also, it does cause terror, and it's a large target. Pretty common to find at least one Phoenix in the army. Generally, it was down to flavour. I know a lot of people like the Flame Spire. I like the Frost Heart personally. They're both usable. They're both different. Damage output initially seems low on this when you look at the stat line, but it really makes it up with things like Wake of Fire and Phoenix Reborn. Can become quite durable and more dangerous as well if you get the right buffs on the Attuned to Magic. And being able to come back, it makes it a tough decision for an enemy opponent. Do you kill the Phoenix knowing it's going to come back, or potentially come back? At least you can have this big explosion template where you've killed it, or do you attack something else is going to be off the board? And then, of course, you've got this dangerous thing flying around the table. So it's really quite interesting from that perspective as, what do you shoot at? I really hope GW keep the flavour of the Phoenixes in Warhammer The Old World. This was a fairly recent kit. It's a plastic kit, and I can, with the anointed in it as well, I can absolutely see this coming back in the Old World, and absolutely it should do. It's fun to play with and looks pretty cool. And you can certainly see my enthusiasm for this unit as we move on to the next one. This was my personal favourite. I really love the paint scheme on this. Absolutely fantastic. Again, with the anointed riding it, but in this section it would come without the rider. But looks really cool. Again, this one above average stats, weapon skill, strength, attacks, and leadership and toughness. Special rules wise, a bit less. You still get the Attuned to Magic. Works exactly the same as the Flame Spire, but you get the Blizzard Aura, which every enemy unit in base contact has always strike last and is at -1 strength. Also has the natural armor of 5+. So the Frostheart Phoenix is clearly different from the Flame Spire. It's much more comfortable in melee combat while having access to the same buffs. And it gets a 5+ armor save as well as the ward save. Blizzard Aura is great for coming with other units attacking. So, if you're going after that one big enemy Death Star unit and you're going to charge, like, say, 3 or 4 units into it, one of them being a Frostheart, giving that unit always strike last and then also -1 strength, it can be a game changer, right? That can be key. So, it reduces that damage that your units will take back if you don't kill it. It's only 20 points more than the Flame Spire. It was personally my personal choice, and to say the model kit also got you the Anointed. But to be honest, both the Frostheart and the Flame Spire were of value. However, points-wise, at 200, 225 points for the Flame Spire, 240 points for the Frostheart. You could take both, but if you were taking both, you weren't taking things like your Eagle Claw, and you weren't taking Sisters of Avalon. So option to take both, but rare is so congested, you won't have your Eagle Claw, you won't have your Sisters of Avalon. Something to think about. And on that note, Sisters of Avalon is up next and is also the last unit in the main section of the army roster, and also the last unit of rare. So, Sisters of Avalon, shared kit with the Shadow Warriors, above average ballistic skill, no surprise there. So you've got the equipment, which is a hand weapon. It's the bow of Avalon that we saw earlier, 24-inch strength, 4 flaming attacks. The attacks are magical as well, so ethereal units like Ken Wraiths, watch out. Volley fire, and additional -1 AP for the Force of Destruction with light armor, so not massively durable. Unit size is 5+, and they only get a champion. There's no standard bearer or musician. Essentially, they're an elite archer unit, which is fairly unique across Warhammer. You often see really dedicated elite archer units. Personally, I always like to include one, which is why I didn't have the 2 Phoenixes. They're fairly popular due to their magical shooting attacks, despite being in the congested rare category. They're 14 points per model. They're cheaper than Lyrian Reavers, cheaper than Phoenix Guard, and coupled with a Handmaiden hero, which gives you moving and shooting without penalty, makes them very flexible. You could hide a mage in here as well, but generally you keep those with normal archers. It's really about getting these moving, getting the shooting in. They've only got a 24-inch range compared to the normal archers at 30. So that's why they generally keep a mage in the archer unit, put your Handmaiden in this unit, get them moving around and get the shooting down, and incredibly useful. So I'll say 14 points a model, not too bad. 10 of them at 140 points, pretty usable and easy enough to fit in a list. Combine that with a Phoenix and a single Eagle Claw, and you're about there with your points limit in the rare category. So that brings us to the end of the main roster for the High Elves. We've got legendary heroes and legendary lords still to come to round it off, but that brings us to the main closure of the High Elf roster. I hope you have enjoyed the series so far. I hope you've enjoyed this video and seen how the different rare units perform and what we might think they might perform like in a Warhammer The Old World. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't know, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, hit that subscribe button. Totally free for you to do. It means such a big deal for me, so thanks for that in advance. You've been watching The Ghost Owl, and I'll see you all very soon for some legendary lords.